Greetings and welcome to the Goddess Breath podcast. I am Dr. Mari Castle, and I'm so excited to be kicking off this podcast. Thank you for listening. My mission is to guide you as if you were on a journey and help you discover how breathwork and ancient wisdom can transform your life and your future. Over the past 2 decades, I've seen how something as simple as breath can unlock the most profound transformations, helping people heal, grow, and rediscover their inner power. I've helped people utilize breathwork as more than a tool, but as a way to release stored emotions, heal old wounds, and connect with a deeper sense of the self. In each episode, we'll start with simple breathing techniques, and then I will guide you into a narrative of an ancient story from 5,000 years ago. This being the myth of the goddess Inanna. Her story provides rich symbolism, and in my view, a message of healing and empowerment for our modern day challenges. For instance, Inanna's journey to the underworld symbolizes the courage for us to confront our shadows, to let go of what no longer serves us, and to rise renewed. Her story is filled with wisdom that can be a mirror for human development. And from a feminine perspective, her story can be segmented into the maiden, the mother, and crone. I'm also wanting to take it one step further, and this is very important. I hope you agree with me, to offer a pathway for our future generations. This all being inspired by the myth of the ancient goddess Inanna, which includes her male hero, her father, and her husband king. I want to pause just for a moment about this and mention that Inanna's male counterparts are also very important in the story and add balance to the masculine and feminine energies. Inanna's story is inclusive. The goddess energy holds the universe in her arms like this great cauldron where there are no judgments, where people can be their authentic self, and where we see and listen to others through the heart space of our body, the energy in our hearts, fostering compassion at an all-inclusive level. Additionally, we will cover various topics such as how mythology or holistic psychology or nature-based wisdom and energy healing can benefit our growth and our transformation in this modern era. I feel like everyone is going through some transformation, either from the weight of the world as heaviness on our emotions, or not acknowledging our emotions, or our voice or opinion shut down, or experiencing unresolved trauma or shame in some way. I can say more, but from a general standpoint, that our mental health situation, at least I can speak for the United States, it's a problem. It's like the elephant in the room that no one wants to talk about. 3 out of 5 people suffer from mental health issues. As our children develop and grow, and we can already see this happening, they are not given the tools they need to work through their emotional roller coaster. I want to shed light on this mental health crisis and provide a pathway for our younger generations that can help them navigate modern day challenges. Let's face it, just looking at the transformation of technology, times have changed tremendously in the last 3 decades. I hope that doesn't sound too deep for you, this overview, even though I know it can sound like a lot. And if this is all new to you, I promise I will unpack each topic and each part of Inanna's story for you to utilize as your own reflection, how you relate, or even as a mirror something outside of yourself that can help you heal from within. This is what an archetype is, a symbol or uh, character. Even animals are archetypes. And this is one of the topics we will be going into as well that I'll dive into more in episode 2. But for now, I just wanted to mention that the archetypes are alive in us. And like I said, I hope none of that's too deep for you, but I'm going to share with you a story that was the seeding of my self-discovery dating back to 2003. And I'm talking about the ancient goddess Inanna as her being an archetype for us to reflect on and to glean from her message for our own transformation. So let me just start by saying that in 2010, through to 2012, I wrote 2 books, and they are Unveiling the Modern Goddess Through Symbolism, Chakras, and Myth, and The Sacred Union, Connecting the Masculine and Feminine Within for Personal Transformation. I'm bringing these up now because much of what I'm going to cover in these episodes of the podcast will be drawn from the content in these 2 books. Not entirely, because I've expanded beyond these books over the last 12, 13 years. But they're basically a good platform foundation, and I'm also then adding these various breathwork techniques that I feel are super helpful to help us dissolve and let go what we no longer need, and then also to have the narrative and the story of this ancient wisdom that can really bring in thought processes for us as we relate to them. That's really important, to relate to them. And it's also important to relate to being able to do these breathwork techniques, because not everyone is right for each person. And that's why in each episode, I'm going to offer a different breathwork technique. Now, my original breathwork session is from doing a holotropic breathwork. So that is spelled HOLOTROPIC, holotropic. And these emerged from these sessions that I had in holotropic breathwork. I was able to connect with the goddess Inanna. And you'll learn soon here as I give my explanation that I didn't even know who she was. But it's exactly the reason why I am sharing my message about her and how my transformation happened in my life, connecting with breath work and also her myth and beyond that. But I'm going to just say a little bit right now about my holotropic breathwork session, because this is where I started. And I also think that everyone is unique. And like I said, not everyone will be able or be called to this type of deep work. So I've created a course that brings simple breathing techniques that you can use as everyday tools to help relieve stress, to feel more focused, to just feel calm and balanced, that is going to be beneficial as a practice. And that leads you into, then this can lead you easily into deeper work. But it's important to note that really it's whatever works best for you. And I really am going to emphasize how much that is important, because it has to be coming from within, that you feel called to either do holotropic breath work or to do these breathing techniques, or even to listen to this narrative story of the ancient goddess Inanna. I hope you do, But I recognize that not everything is for everybody. And I'm providing this for those who do feel like they want the breathing techniques, want to deepen into their self-discovery, and are searching something. They're searching for something. So before I go into reading, because I'm going to read from my book, I'm going to just say a little bit about what holotropic breathwork is. And this is the really, I call it the Mac Daddy. Maybe you never heard of that word before, but it means like the end all, the get all, the best one. And it's powerful. It's deep and transformative. It's a therapeutic tool to tap into our innate healing wisdom. And it's based on combining the cyclical breathing with evocative music to access a non-ordinary state of consciousness. It's safe and it's guided by a trained facilitator, and it can benefit you by gaining more clarity on your life journey, and to experience more inner peace and tap into your natural capacity for transformation. It can also benefit people who suffer from anxiety, depression, like I was talking about mental health issues, and addictions, many, many things that I will talk about as we go along. But because it can be quite intense, it is not recommended as an online practice or to be done alone. Holotropic breathwork is not what we will be doing in this podcast. We will be doing simple breathing techniques that I will provide and explain and talk about if there's any contraindications or whatnot. But I do provide the holotropic breathwork or in-person workshops, often in where I'm located in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in other locations in a group format, as a weekend retreat, or even in private sessions. So I will provide the link in the notes so you can check that out if you're interested. But basically my website is breathwork9.com. So I'm going to take a breath here for a second and let you know that I'm going to read from my book, and I'm going into the very introduction. This is my book, Unveiling the Modern Goddess, and I want to share with you my experience that I had back in 2003. Now, mind you, this was my third holotropic breathwork experience. I had a couple before, starting in 2000 with Dr. Stan Groff and Jack Cornfield, and it was called Insight and Opening. This particular workshop, I flew up to Richmond, Virginia, and it was a weekend workshop. And I start out the very beginning of my book, the first chapter, as the introduction, titled A Spiritual Quest. And I write a quote in the beginning. And this quote is from Albert Einstein. The most beautiful experience we can have is the mysterious. He to whom this emotion is a stranger, who can no longer pause to wonder and stand wrapped in awe, is as good as dead. Now I'm reading from my first paragraph. Something shifted for me in the new millennia and the year 2000. It was subtle at the time, but I would now call it my spiritual quest. It seems strange to even call it that. I didn't know what I was searching for, but I knew that I felt a deep inner stir. I obviously already had a spiritual thirst. I went to church every week, sometimes every day, but what I was searching for was beyond this religious environment. I remember being in church and having some confusion with my guilty feelings. I often left feeling of fear instead of feeling filled with God's presence. Through my lens, Jesus loved and accepted all beings as divine. The Jesus I knew expressed love and compassion for all humanity, no matter what color, race, belief, or choice a person made. My whole life, I felt a strong connection to Jesus, and I still do. I trusted my inner guidance to lead me to what I was searching for, although I had no clue what I would find in the fall of 2003. I'll never forget that weekend. It was November, late autumn, and the leaves were falling from the trees. There was still a vast array of red and yellows, but the foliage was settling and winter was about to begin. I'll never forget that my cousin joined me that weekend because I invited her to come and experience this holotropic breath work with me, as I thought maybe she could benefit from it as well. And I wanted to have some support, perhaps family support for what I was going through, because I realized after doing a couple of the initial holotropic breathwork sessions, like I said, this was my third time, that I wasn't dealing with some of the emotions that I had been experiencing. And I thought it would be good for me to do a little peeling away of the layers because I had just gone through a divorce and I lost custody of my son, and I was struggling with addictions and not connecting with my emotions. I was covering them up. As time went by, I realized there were other circumstances that I needed to work through or deal with. And I felt like it was the right time to be taking a look at situations that caused me to be numb. It was the right time for me to do some inner healing. So now I'm jumping ahead paragraphs in my book, and I'm going to go right into what the experience was. Mind you, it was a weekend workshop, and we had the introduction in the Friday evening with Dr. Stan Groff and explaining how it works. And then Saturday morning, we jumped right in, and I was in my breathing session. So I was lying on my back and started the deep continuous breathing. The idea was to let go into a deep process, a non-ordinary state of consciousness, to access a non-ordinary state of consciousness, or a deep meditation. It was not an easy process because with so many people in the room and the loud music, it felt difficult to let go. I wasn't sure what to expect, but I stayed with it. First, I experienced an inner vision of rainbow-like colors that were blue and purple. They were kind of puffy. It was really fascinating to experience this in my mind. Then something shifted, and I felt like I was underground. It felt dark. The air felt damp, and I was feeling like deep beneath the earth. I was a little scared. I didn't know what was happening. I was confused because I was one point experiencing all these beautiful, excuse me, colors. And the next thing, I'm underground. And then I hear a voice and I feel like there's something near me, like a box. And the voice, I see the box and I think, oh no, what is that? And then the voice says, open the box. And I think, what? I don't think so. I'm not sure I'm ready for that. The voice is feminine, and I hear it again, and she says, don't be afraid. And I thought, well, easy for you to say. But, it was encouraging. And I thought, well, this is all an illusion. Anyway, I know I can open my eyes. It's holotropic breath work, right? Um, so I said, okay, I'll open the box. No harm done. And then this huge purple presence seeped out of the opening and enveloped me. I was instantly relaxed and felt calm and supported. This feminine presence lifted me up. We swirled up and out of the darkness to be revealed in the light. We were above ground and floating. And I said, "Who are you?" I felt this presence was familiar to me. I heard a response. "I'm Ainanya." I asked, "Who?" And then I just kind of spelled the syllables like I visualized her name in my mind. I spelled it Aynanya. Thought, wow, that's interesting. I will have to remember that. And then as we continued, she and I danced together in the sky. We were free and joyous. There was nothing holding me back. When this energetic presence emerged from the box like a puffy purple hue, I felt as though I was participating in an awakening. It was as if this energy had been dormant for thousands of years, and I helped lift the veil. It was an amazing correlation of lifting the veil and breaking free. And now, here I'm pausing from my book again and wanting to say that I wrote her name down on a piece of artwork paper, which after you do holotropic breathwork, it's called, it's like doing creative expressive art, but it's called a mandala. And it's a circle on the paper. And you just draw free expression of what your experience was. And I wrote her name down as I heard it in the corner of my paper because it was so fascinating for me. And it took me a little while to really fully like take in what that experience was for me. It was so powerful. You know, we do sharing in the breathwork workshops, and I um, did a lot of integration with searching various symbolism from the experience that I had. But I just felt there was something else. And I continued to search and look for her name. I looked online and typed in her name, and I talked to various people, and I was interested in Eastern philosophies, and I looked through different deities that maybe related or I could identify with as her character name of who she was, her divine feminine presence. And then I finally did find somebody to uh, really like gave me the exact lead that I needed, changed the spelling of her name because they knew who I was talking about. And luckily, then I put that her name, which is Ainana, in the Google search and came up with a couple of books. So this was back in 2003, 22 years ago. There was not that much about Ainana. But now you can do a Google search and find so much about her, which I'm so excited about that she's evolved and now much more familiar to many people because I felt so alone not knowing who she was. And then when I did know who she was, there wasn't much about her. This is all going to be taken in further explanation in the future episodes. But I just want to kind of stop there and say that I'm also reading this from my book that the experience that day was so powerful that it transformed my life. It was no longer about that experience. It evolved into a much deeper meaning. And that is true for everyone who feels called to do something. It doesn't necessarily need to be holotropic breathwork or you know, all different modalities that are out there for therapy, but there's so many that we can access and tap into. And it's about hearing the call and listening, and then not realizing where that trail leads you, but trusting in your inner process and your inner guidance to follow that trail. And then who knows what the breakthroughs are and where that will lead to you and your unfolding of your journey in your life. So I'm gonna stop there and thank you for listening again. I want to just say that I'll follow up in the next episode with just a little bit more about this experience. And then for now, though, I just want to give you a brief background about me since you've been listening for quite some time. That my background started in the healing journey. In 1997, I went to school for massage therapy because I was in a number of auto accidents. And then because of body work, you know, massage therapy is body work. And I came across this holotropic breathwork workshop where they do body work. And it was out in California. So I went out there to do this week-long workshop. And that's where I met Dr. Stan Groff and Jack Cornfield and had my first experiences there. And I continued to be interested in all of this work, but I really had no knowledge or background of it at all. I had a background in accounting. So imagine that. From the Midwest, from Chicago area, I grew up. And then I decided from this training, I went ahead and decided to sign up for the teacher training for holotropic breathwork. And then I was so fascinated by all of the content that I got from Dr. Stan Groff in the training that I wanted to learn more and went to get my master's degree in transpersonal psychology. During this exact same time, I also had studied Chinese medicine, Oriental medicine, and have my background in acupuncture and Chinese medicine. And that's because of the healing I needed around being in the car accidents that I was in. So, jump ahead, then I went ahead and got my PhD in it's transpersonal psychology, but focused on ancient wisdom and basically so much narrowed in on the Sumerian culture and mythology and archetype and symbolism and all of how these concepts can really help us in our process with relating and understanding that nature, even in and of itself, is something that can teach us so much because it holds the energies of light and dark, of death and rebirth. So I'll stop there because I can kind of get off on a tangent. And what I want to do now is just give you a glimpse of what we'll talk about in the next few episodes. So, the next episode, I'm going to go into talking a little more in depth and explaining what is archetype. What does that mean? How does that benefit me to relate to an archetype? What is mythology? How can a story help me transform my life and or my future? And episode 3, we're going to start Ainana's myth, beginning with her connection with the tree after the floodwaters were tearing away the lone cedar tree at the Euphrates River. This is in Mesopotamia. Now we know as Iran and Turkey in that area, the Middle East. And then and I'm going to talk a little bit also about the chakra energy system in the body and go into specifically the root chakra. That's where it begins, the foundation. Then I'm going to go into episode 4 with an interview. It'll be my first guest, a gentleman who created an eclectic and inclusive spiritual center in my local area in St. Petersburg, Florida, if you're familiar, Roots to Crown. Yeah, so that's what you have to look forward to. And to close, I just want to leave you with a reminder to take a conscious, intentional breath. Just thinking about your breath throughout the day, just thinking about it, being conscious of it can be a game changer. And the great thing is, our breath is with us always. It's like our ally. I liken it to being in my pocket. I can just pull out my breath whenever I need to feel like I have some stress I want to relieve, or I want to just feel more focused, calm, or feel more centered. So that concludes the first episode, and thank you for listening. Be well, my friend.